Hi, I'm Chris Harold. This is my narrative speech entitled In the Pit. I've enjoyed going to music shows for over half my life. Something about blaring, distorted guitars and equally booming drums just makes me smile. Besides for the noise, being a part of the scene with like-minded peers just adds to the experience. It's almost like a family, albeit a vulgar, sarcastic, and sometimes malicious one. Over the years, I've grown accustomed to it, but it took time to do so. It all started somewhere, and that somewhere for me was at Cutskis Hall in a small suburb of Green Bay called Howard. When I was 13, I was asked by some of the cooler, older kids if I wanted to go see a metal show with them the coming weekend. Heck yeah, I was cool enough to hang out with the high schoolers. I accepted, and Saturday soon arrived. My future good friend Chad picked me up outside my parents' house in his brown, rusted Saab 900. We spent the next hour or so driving around, picking up more showgoers, and then we were off to the big city of Green Bay. Even though I managed to keep my cool, I was extremely nervous. Though I had listened to many a story about how fun shows are, I couldn't help but think about all the worst scenarios. A few months prior, there had been a riot at a body count show in Green Bay, where police ended up using force to get things under control. Kids were hurt. Another instance that had me worried was a story in the local newspaper about a kid. His name was Tim Pickard. I'd later become his friend, who ended up that fell while moshing and ended up becoming paralyzed from the waist down. I've always been the edgy type, and no matter how hard I tried to put these thoughts out of my head, I just couldn't do it. When we arrived at the venue, the show was already in full swing. 1,000 or so capacity theater, which smelled not much unlike a smoking ashtray, was more than half full, and several of the opening acts had already warmed up the crowd. After paying a cover, I tensely walked towards the noise, which sounded not much different than what one might expect the soundtrack to Hell to sound like. As I did so, everyone who I had come in with split off in their own directions to say hi to their in-town friends, none of whom I knew, or to get a better view of the stage. Left by myself, I wandered in apprehensively and found a place to stand off to the right of the stage behind a few people. Beyond them, a blur of mohawks, black leather jackets, and big black boots thrashed, pushed, and slammed into each other. I watched on for about 20 minutes or so, and then doom struck. The band had chosen to play an obviously popular song that threw the audience into a ruckus. The human wall that had been protecting me dissolved off to the left and the right, and I ended up getting pushed into the mess. I suppose it wasn't much different than being an unwilling participant in a stampede, really. Had I just gone with the flow and waited for the song to be over, it might not have been so bad. However, I was terrified and instinctually tried to make a beeline for the edge of the pit. Then I lost my balance. Then I fell. I used my arm as a shield to cushion the fall, but my chin hit the hardwood floor first. I bit down hard on my lower lip. I tasted blood. All I could see was an ocean of Doc Martens flailing madly around me. For a split second, I clearly remember thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to be a statistic. Just then a hand grabbed me, and then another, and then another. As I was pulled up, I saw two guys behind me blocking the wave of punks, while a third in front of me helped me get to my feet. Hey, you all right, man? He asked, in an urgent and kind of concerned way. My lip was bleeding pretty bad in the first place. Shaken, I replied I was. The pit continued around me for what seemed like eternity, but eventually the song ended and I found my way out. On the ride home, that incident was all I could think about. My fat, swollen lip didn't bother me, the fact that I was incredibly hungry didn't bother me, and the fact that my parents were likely going to be pretty angry with me for being home after 2 a.m. didn't bother me. The music was great, but the experience was cathartic. It was the night that I beat the fear of the chaos that ensues at small, hardcore venues. I was now an element of it, and there was nowhere else to look but forward.